Ever get that, like, almost like a phantom feeling of a door closing? You know, like you just missed something. Or maybe took a different path than you could have.
Oh, absolutely. That what-if feeling.
Yeah.
It's like a universal itch we can't quite scratch.
Right. And Matt Haig, he takes that itch and, well, he writes a whole library about it.
Yeah.
Literally.
The Midnight Library. Such a clever concept.
So in this deep dive with, well, let's be honest, our listeners, no stranger to a good existential crisis.
Definitely not. This will be right up their alley.
Exactly. So the Midnight Library, it's about this woman, Nora Seed, and things aren't, well, they're not great in her life.
Understatement of the century.
Anyway, she stumbles upon this library, but instead of your typical bestsellers.
Think more along the lines of best versions of your life.
Okay, yeah. Each book is a different path Nora could have taken. A chance to peek into all those what-ifs.
It's like Haig took the concept of regret and made it into a choose-your-own-adventure novel.
With some seriously high stakes. So we've got Nora feeling pretty lost in her own life.
Lost might be a mild way to put it, given, you know.
Right, of course. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But first, let's talk about these alternate lives.
Oh, because they are wild. Haig doesn't hold back.
He throws everything at Nora. Olympic swimmer, famous musician, even a glaciologist braving the Arctic.
Talk about range. He really makes you think about those sliding door moments, you know? The paths we choose and the ones we leave behind.
And how different our lives would be if we just, like, took a left instead of a right.
Precisely. But here's the thing Haig does so well. He doesn't just paint these idealized pictures of what could have been.
Because wouldn't that be too easy?
Exactly. Each life, no matter how shiny and perfect it seems from the outside, comes with its own set of problems.
So it's like that old saying, be careful what you wish for.
Exactly. And that's where the library itself becomes almost like its own character in the story, this physical manifestation of Nora's regrets.
And it's always described as being shrouded in this perpetual midnight, which is, it's pretty on point, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just a stylistic choice, that perpetual midnight. It represents the space Nora's in, between life and death.
Because, yeah, we can't gloss over that part. Her journey through these lives, it all starts after a suicide attempt in her root life, as Haig calls it.
Right, it's like the universe hit pause and said, hold on, before you do anything drastic, want to see how all those other choices would have played out.
It's like a cosmic do-over, a chance to hit rewind on her biggest regrets, and man, she's got a lot of them.
Don't we all? That's what makes it so relatable. It's not just this fantastical out there concept, it's deeply humanly relatable.
This book of regrets, she finds, it's almost painful how much it resonates. Not pursuing music, the whole what-if surrounding a guy named Dan. Even that trip to Australia she never took with her best friend Izzy.
See, classic stuff. Who hasn't agonized over those kinds of choices? Haig he magnifies it with this library.
He turns it into this huge echoing hall of could-have-beens.
And that's the genius of it, is both this grand existential exploration and this incredibly personal, intimate story.
It's easy to get, like, completely swept up in the fantasy of it, you know? Having a million chances to get it right. Who wouldn't want that?
Right. This library starts to feel like the ultimate wish fulfillment. And here's where Haig throws a real curveball.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting.
He introduces this character, Hugo. Nora meets him in one of her lives, and he drops this bombshell about quantum physics.
Quantum physics. See, I knew our listener would be cool with this. Okay, so for anyone who hasn't brushed up on their theoretical physics lately.
It's the many-worlds interpretation. Basically, imagine that for every decision you make, every possible outcome, a new universe splits off.
So there's like a billion different versions of me out there, making different choices, living different lives.
Infinite versions, actually. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
Okay, that's officially more than my brain can handle before my morning coffee.
Yeah.
But the thing is, this isn't just some made-up sci-fi concept, right?
Right, and that's what makes it so compelling. There are actual physicists who take this interpretation seriously. It's a legitimate theory about how reality works.
Okay, so maybe I do need more coffee. But back to the story. Haig doesn't just throw this in there for the wow factor. He uses it to explore something really profound about human nature.
Because imagine having access to all those possibilities.
Yeah.
Infinite choices. You'd think it would be this ultimate freedom, right?
The ultimate escape from regret. If you don't like a choice, just jump to a different universe where you made a different one.
Exactly. But that's the thing about freedom, isn't it? Too much of it, and it can become paralyzing.
It's like that feeling when you're scrolling through endless streaming options and end up just watching the same show again because you can't decide.
Exactly. Or, even worse, you start watching something and then you're constantly wondering if you should switch to a different show, a different life. You never fully engage because you're too busy chasing the what-ifs.
And that's the danger of getting stuck in the midnight library, right? Always looking for something better, something more, but never finding contentment in the present moment.
Haig doesn't shy away from that. In fact, Nora meets another traveler in the library. Someone who's been lost in that cycle of endless choices for, well, who knows how long.
Trapped by their own regrets and the illusion of infinite options.
And that's where I think the book offers a really powerful message for our listener. Because, let's be honest, the pursuit of better is something we can all relate to. But when does that pursuit become its own form of prison?
It's like that idea that we can get so caught up in chasing happiness that we forget to actually be happy in the present moment.
Exactly. And sometimes the bravest, most liberating thing we can do is to stop chasing those what-ifs and choose to engage fully with the reality we've got, flaws and all.
Choose to write our own story, even if it's a little messy, even if it doesn't look like the stories on the shelves of the Midnight Library. But hold on. If Nora just accepts her life as it is, doesn't that kind of defeat the whole purpose of the library?
Ah, that's the brilliant part. It's not about passively accepting whatever life throws at us. It's about recognizing that we always have a choice in how we respond. And sometimes the most powerful choice we can make is to choose ourselves.
So it's less about finding the perfect life and more about choosing to make your life, well, perfect in its own way.
Now you're getting it. And that's the key takeaway here, I think. It's not about erasing our regrets or pretending they don't exist. It's about shifting our perspective.
Okay, so less, I wish I hadn't done that, and more like, okay, what can I learn from this?
Exactly. What if, instead of weighing us down, our regrets could actually become, well, almost like fuel for growth?
Okay, now that's an interesting way to look at it. Turn those what-ifs into what-nows.
Precisely. And remember that image of the Book of Regrets we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah, it's giving very, antique, leather-bound vibes.
Right. Well, imagine taking that book, opening it up, and instead of just feeling the weight of those past choices, you actually start to see them as clues.
Clues to what?
To who you are, what matters to you. Because those regrets, they often stem from things we deeply care about, right?
Yeah, that's true. Like, the things we regret not doing are often things we really, really wanted to do.
Exactly. So, what if, and I know this might sound a little out there, but what if we started to view our regrets as doorways?
Doorways, too.
To a deeper understanding of ourselves, our values, our desires, even our fears. Because let's be honest, sometimes the things we regret the most are the things we were too afraid to try.
Okay, so it's like those regrets are actually signposts pointing us back to ourselves.
Exactly. And once we start to see them that way, we can start to ask ourselves some really important questions.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, let's say one of your big regrets is not pursuing a particular career path. Instead of just dwelling on that what if, you could ask yourself, okay, what was it about that path that appealed to me in the first place? Was it the creativity, the challenge, the potential to make a difference?
And then what?
Then you see if there are ways to bring those elements into your life now. Maybe it's taking a night class, starting a side project, or even just shifting your mindset in your current job. The point is, those regrets, they don't have to be dead ends. They can be springboards.
So instead of getting stuck in the could-have-beens, we can use those regrets to create something new and meaningful in the present. It's like, instead of looking back and saying, oh, I wish I had taken that path, you can say, okay, what can I do now to create a life that feels more aligned with who I truly am?
Now you're thinking like a midnight librarian. It's about reclaiming that sense of agency, that power to shape our own lives, even if it's not in the way we initially imagined. And, it doesn't have to be these huge life-altering shifts either.
Oh, you mean like it doesn't have to be about quitting your job and moving to Bali to start a new life?
Right. Although if that's your jam, go for it. But it can also be about those smaller everyday choices, the moments where you choose to speak your truth, to prioritize a meaningful connection, to pursue a passion, even if it's just for a few minutes a day. Those choices, they add up. They create ripples.
They write the story of our lives one chapter at a time.
Precisely. And that's the beauty of it. We don't need a magical library to access infinite possibilities. Those possibilities, they exist within us, within every choice we make.
So to our listener out there, maybe it's time to dust off that book of regrets, not to wallow in the past, but to mine it for wisdom.
Turn those what-ifs into what-nows and watch as your own extraordinary story unfolds. One imperfect, messy, beautiful chapter at a time.
I love that. And sometimes those messy chapters, they turn out to be the most interesting ones of all. This has been quite the deep dive.
It really has. It makes you think, doesn't it?
It certainly does. To our listener, we hope this exploration of the Midnight Library has sparked some new insights and maybe even a little bit of that magic in your own life. Until next time, keep exploring those possibilities.